Welcome to 21st Sports Recap and Reaction for the New Orleans Saints at the Washington Redskins in their Week 10 matchup played November 15th, 2015. We're going to go over the scores and the stats and give our breakdown and analysis. And starting off in the first quarter, with about 8 minutes left in the first, Kirk Cousins hit Jordan Reed for a 16-yard touchdown pass. And this is the opening drive for the Redskins. They went 96 yards on this drive, and they scored the touchdown. Dustin Hopkins kicked the extra point, and it was 7-0 Redskins over the Saints. And the Saints would score with about 6 minutes left in the first on the next possession as Drew Brees hit Brandon Cooks for a 4-yard touchdown. Forbath added the extra point, and this game was tied at 7 apiece. Then, with a minute left in the first still, on the next possession for the Redskins, Kirk Cousins hit Jamison Crowder for an 11-yard touchdown. Hopkins added the extra point, and it was 14-7. Redskins back in the lead by a touchdown. The Saints would come right back, though, and they would score on a 60-yard touchdown pass by Drew Brees to Brandon Cooks. They connected for a touchdown for the second time in this game. This one with a little less than 11 minutes left before halftime. And Kai Forbath added the extra point, and this game was tied once again, this time at 14 apiece. But that was it for New Orleans, as the Redskins would go on a tear thereafter, as they would score 33 unanswered points for the rest of the way out, starting with 10 minutes left still in the first half, as Matt Jones scored on a 78-yard touchdown pass from Kirk Cousins, and that would make it 21-14 after the extra point by Hopkins. Hopkins would add a 35-yard field goal with just over 3 minutes left still in the second to make it 24-14 to extend the Redskins' lead to 10. Then just before halftime, he hit a 23-yard field goal, and it was 27-14 headed into the locker rooms at halftime. Then in the third quarter, with less than 5 minutes left in the third, Hopkins added a 40-yard field goal to make it 30-14. And with just seconds left in the third, Cousins connected with Jordan Reed for another touchdown. This one an 8-yard touchdown that made it 37-14 after the extra point by Hopkins. And in the fourth quarter, Dashon Goldson picks off Drew Brees and runs it back 35 yards for the pick six. The defensive touchdown less than a minute into the fourth quarter. Hopkins kicks the extra point, and it was now 44-14. Washington over New Orleans. And with about 9.5 minutes left in this game, Hopkins added a 22-yard field goal that made it 47-14, and that would do it as the Redskins rout the Saints in Washington. So the Redskins come up big in this one. They're 4-1 at home. They're 4-5 on the season. They have not won a game outside of D.C., but in D.C., they are quite the formidable foe, and Kirk Cousins has the best game of this season, if not his career. This is the first time throwing 4 touchdowns. He had a perfect quarterback rating, and he was just lighting them up. He actually, all season long, his longest touchdown pass was 7 yards, and in this game, his shortest touchdown pass was 8 yards. So he actually, every touchdown pass in this game was longer than any other he had all season long. So a huge game for Kirk Cousins in this one, and including that 78-yard touchdown to Matt Jones. And Matt Jones had quite the game for sure. Let's actually go over the stats. Kirk Cousins 20 for 25, 324 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. And then Alfred Morris 15 carries for 92 yards. Matt Jones 11 carries for 56 yards. He also had 3 receptions for 131 yards for Matt Jones in this game, as he had 157 total yards in that receiving touchdown. And Thompson had 2 rushes for 54 yards, as they were just running all over the Saints. Crowder had 4 receptions for 60 yards. Dashon Jackson 2 receptions for 44 yards. Jordan Reed 3 receptions for 29 yards and 2 touchdowns. Thompson also had a reception for 23 yards to go along with his rushing yards, which gave him 77 total yards on the game. Morris also had 3 receptions for 14 yards to go along with his 92 rushing yards, which gave him 106 total yards on the game. And then for the Saints, Drew Brees, 19 for 28, 209 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Ingram had 5 carries for 77 yards. Hightower, 11 carries for 46 yards. Brandon Cooks, 5 receptions for 98 yards and 2 touchdowns. Ingram also had 3 receptions for 21 yards, which gave him a total of 98 yards on the day. We look at the kickers, Forbath, 2 for 2 on the extra points, and Hopkins, perfect, 4 for 4 on the field goals, 5 for 5 on the extra points for Dustin Hopkins. So he had a huge day. The offense of the Redskins was just really rolling today. And Goldson had that pick 6. Riley also had an interception. Breland had a forced fumble. Paella had a sack. And Murphy and Baker combined for a sack, because each had a half sack. Guacham had 1.5 sacks, and Davison had a half sack for New Orleans, as well as Bird, who had a sack. Look at the team stats: 23 first downs for the Redskins, 16 first downs for the Saints. On third downs, the Redskins 6 of 11, 54% converted. 4 for 11 for New Orleans, 36% converted. They went for it twice on fourth down, and they did not convert either. We look at net yards: 514 for the Redskins, 350 for the Saints. Net rushing yards: 213 for the Redskins, 158 for the Saints. And the passing net yards: 301 for DC, as Cousins was sacked 3 times, losing 23 yards. And on the other side for New Orleans, 192 yards netted. Brees was sacked twice, losing 17 yards. Look at the penalties: 7 penalties against the Saints, 50 penalty yards. 5 penalties against the Redskins, just 26 penalty yards. Both teams fumbled the ball but did not lose. They recovered their own fumbles. And we look at the red zone: 3 for 6 for Washington, 50%. 1 for 1 for New Orleans, 100%. And the Redskins had the ball 33 minutes and 34 seconds versus 26 minutes and 26 seconds for the Saints. And I'll tell you, this is kind of what I expected. I didn't realize that they'd necessarily blow them out to this extent. But I expected Kirk Cousins to have a big day. Played him in my fantasy. Actually picked him up just for this week in the year-long fantasy league that we're in. And he paid off big time. So that worked out pretty good. Of course, also started Dashon Jackson. That didn't really play out. Wish would have went with Matt Jones. That having been said, I did think that the Redskins would take this game. Against the Saints, been letting up big games. You saw the game that they played against the Giants. 101 points were scored in that game. Then you saw with that game against Tennessee, it was Mariota's best game of his career. Of course, he's a rookie. And then here, Cousins has his best game of the season. So really, what you want to do is see, who are the Saints playing? I'm going with that quarterback in fantasy anyway. But the Saints now, with the loss, they're 4-6. The Redskins 4-5, and they're right in the mix. They're in the East, as they're just 1 game back of the Giants. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. Of course, they're tied with Philadelphia. So the Redskins are in the mix. It's anyone's division in the East. You never know which way that division's going to go, as that division usually comes down to the final week of the season. But the Redskins are keeping the hope alive, especially at home. Is there a different team at home? They have not won a game on the road all season. They're going to have to win on the road if they want to win in the East. But if they can keep winning at home, they'll keep themselves alive. In New Orleans, they've had an up and down season, and it's kind of a similar thing. They've only won 1 game on the road. They're a better team at home, much the same as the Redskins, where this might have been a different game in New Orleans. Probably would have been similarly high scoring on the Washington end, but the Saints probably put up more points if they were in New Orleans. But the Redskins come up big in this one. And at first it looked like it was going to be a shootout, but then they just shut them down after letting up that touchdown early in the second. they would shut them out the rest of the way and score those 33 unanswered points. And quite the effort as they just came up big, especially in the second half, to just blank the Saints in that second half while putting up 20 points. But let me know what you think in the comments section below. Definitely interested to read your thoughts and opinions. Thank you very much for listening. It's greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a good week and having a great weekend and enjoyed all the sports.